Welcome everyone to this ordinary meeting of Council on the 19th of July 2022. As the meeting chair, I give my consent for this open council meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online. Anyone who is invited to read out a question or a presentation will be recorded and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. The chair and or the CEO have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. The stream will stop prior to the closed section of the meeting and will recommence for the conclusion of the meeting. The public is able to view this live stream via our website at www.pyrenees.vic.gov.au. Should technical issues prevent the continuation of the stream, a recording will be made available on our website. Please stand for the opening prayer. Heavenly Father, we ask you to give your blessing to this council, direct and prosper its deliberations to the advancement of your glory and the true welfare of the people of the Pyrenees Shire. Amen. Please be seated. We acknowledge the peoples past and present of the Wadawurrung, Dja Dja Wurrung, Eastern Maar and Watchabollock tribes whose land forms the Pyrenees Shire. We pay our respects to the customs, traditions and stewardship of the land by the elders and people of these tribes on whose land we meet today. Any apologies? No.
Ms. Bramwell.
Ms. Bramwell. Any notice of disclosure of interest by councillors or officers? None. Thank you.
Sorry, I have no internet connection. So I'm just going to go find the internet.
Okay.
So we just suspend until Rebecca checks it out.
Are we off? Okay. Just talk amongst yourselves. I don't know, but I haven't played a game of golf for a long while either. So
Just anticipate that the internet connection might be restored soon. So just be a bit mindful about it. It starts up automatically.
what are you trying to tell me, Jim?
Just be careful of the jokes.
I don't think he judges. What do you think?
Is this something that you check out regularly, is it?
Absolutely.
All right, we're back online.
Thank you. Apologies there was a slight disruption to the stream. We'll now continue with the meeting. Confirmation of the previous minutes. Recommendation, councillors, that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 14th of June 2022 and the closed meeting of council held on the 14th of June 2022, as previously circulated to councillors, be confirmed. Moved councillor Vance, seconded councillor Keogh. All those in favour? Carried. Is there any business arising, councillors? None. Thank you very much. Question time. Members of the public are encouraged to ask questions of council at ordinary council meetings. Members of the public may attend the meeting in person to verbally ask a question. All attendees must register by midday on the day of the meeting to ensure council adheres to the number of attendees permitted under its COVID safe plan. Members of the public who are unable to attend in person can participate in question time by submitting their questions in writing, either online through the council website, by mail or hand delivered. A person can ask a maximum of 2 questions at any one meeting on any topic, and the questions and responses shall not exceed 5 minutes. Questions are to be received by 12 noon on the day of the meeting. Questions are read by the chairperson during public participation. The chairperson or councillor or council officer to whom the question is referred may immediately answer the question or take the question on notice for the next ordinary meeting. Public submissions. Members of the public may present a submission to council in the period immediately following public question time. Members of the public may attend the meeting in person to verbally make a submission. All attendees must register by midday of the day of the meeting to ensure council adheres to the number of attendees permitted under the COVID safe plan. Members of the public who are unable to attend in person to make a submission on an agenda item may do so in writing, either online through the council's website, by mail or hand delivered. The chair will allocate a maximum of 5 minutes to each person who wishes to address council. Submissions are to be received by 12 noon on the day of the meeting. There will be no discussion or debate with the public attendees. However, councillors may ask questions for clarification of the attendee. Do we have any questions from the gallery? Do we have a submission from the gallery? Mr. Weller.
From the RSL.
Des, could you come to the microphone, please? And state your name.
My name is Des Weller. I'm also the Secretary of the Beaufort RSL, and I'm applying for permission to put for the Beaufort Community Artillery piece,
Thank you,
finding
Des.
a suitable location.
Please proceed.
The Beaufort RSL's preferred location is option 3, aligned parallel to the path to the memorial and facing the highway. The gun shelter would be 5 metres by 3 metres by 3 metres, and if the size of the shelter is of concern to the Shire, we believe that these dimensions will have a very low impact on the memorial and Memorial Park. We are currently getting more information regarding an all-clear enclosure. Being able to see all the way through will ensure that the gun is the main focus whilst not obscuring the view. It is very important that this valuable piece of local history is displayed in the best possible location to attract the many tourists that travel through Beaufort. It will be also of huge interest to local people, including school groups. Also, the impending bypass of Beaufort is going to have a huge impact on our town unless we are very proactive. This piece of war history will be a big draw card to the town, especially as we are linking it to a trail from the Ballarat Arch to the overpass on the Western Highway to the Trawalla Soldier Settlement and onwards to the Avenue of Honour from Beaufort, which is in honour of 500 trees leading into Beaufort, and on to Memorial Park. the Burangor Cemetery, where there is a significant memorial to Sir Brunel White, a local war hero, and then on to Ararat RSL. In brackets, we've put a Ballarat War history brochure, which is included with the submission. The Beaufort RSL is also reaching out to the Ballarat and Ararat RSLs, along with the Ballarat and Ararat councils, to initiate a joint war memorial trail. The local service group and citizens of Beaufort have donated in excess of $50,000 towards the restoration of the cannon. And they have made it very clear that the cannon has to be displayed in a prominent position, not at the back of the memorial park, which there should be a letter attached. After securing the donation for the restoration, it was transported to Bendigo for the work to be done. After the restoration, it was put on display on Remembrance Day in 2020. The cannon now needs a permanent display location. The history of the cannon can be traced back to the 29th of September 1918, when it was captured along with 3 other guns in a battle at Bullencourt by the Australian 29th Battalion. A local soldier from Main Lead, Harry Anderson, was with the 29th Battalion at the time of this action. A senior curator at the Australian War Memorial in Canberra has said that it is an honour for the public of Beaufort to have one of the 4 guns captured and only one of 2 that are in Australia. He also said that a replica has no historic or honourable place in Beaufort. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallen. Councillor Clark. Excuse me, Des.
Oh, sorry, just a question there, just to confirm. So when you say option 3,
Yep.
if I'm standing at the front of the memorial, that's the one at the front on the right-hand side, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Thank you, Des. Thank you for your presentation. Councillors, item 10, items for noting. Do we have any questions for the officers? Councillor Clark. Yours.
A question for Mr. Gowans, that the item in the first report under statutory planning, it talks about the State Government's Agriculture Victoria Department bringing in integrated land management plans. Could you give us a little bit more information on what these are, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for your question. Integrated land management plans are something that have existed for a while, and it's they're often required when associated with dwellings in the farming zone, and the stance from Agriculture Victoria is that they'd like to see these integrated land management plans truly show how a dwelling in the farming zone is actually going to be used for a farming purpose. There has been a concern that some integrated land use management plans haven't been genuine in their response, Agriculture Victoria, as a referral authority, are seeking much more detail and an explanation around how a dwelling in the farming zone is going to assist with the agricultural use.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? No. I'll move the items for noting in sections 10, 11 and 12 be received. Moved Councillor Keogh, seconded Councillor Ferrari. All those in favour? Carried. Item 13.1, economic development and tourism. Mr. Nolan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is being prepared by Mr. Ray Davies, the Manager of Economic Development and Tourism. The report identifies that the Minister for Tourism has commissioned the Regional Tourism Review within recent years. There are a number of key themes that emerged from that review, with a number of recommendations having been made. Now, this is of interest to the Pyrenees Shire because tourism as an economic sector within the Pyrenees Shire contributes about $21 million to our economy on an annual basis. When you compare that with, say, agriculture, which contributes around $200 million, manufacturing around 80, the construction sector around 74, and so forth and so on. So tourism is one of the significant output sectors. So council is interested in this review and the findings of the minister. And council invests significantly each year in supporting our tourism sector. Among the recommendations in the review were recommendations that related to regional tourism boards. And what then that informed was the development of a visitor economy recovery and reform plan. So that reform plan had a number of actions, and those actions related to visitor economy partnerships. Now, these visitor economy partnerships were to replace what was previously known as the regional tourism boards, of which council has previously participated with Ballarat as part of the Visit Ballarat Regional Tourism Board. The plan also made recommendations around actions for strengthening the industry and for developing skills and workforce planning. So the Visit Ballarat was a subset of the previous tourism board, which was referred to as the Victorian Goldfields Tourism Executive. And that included a number of councils, including Ballarat, Bendigo, and many of the smaller councils in between, as well as Pyrenees. What's recommended is that a new visitor economy partnership be established under the proposed regime. And at this point in time, the state is not ready to implement that. And in the interim, it's considered appropriate that council considers being part of the Ballarat Regional Tourism, which we've partnered with in recent years. And as such, a memorandum of understanding has been established with Ballarat Regional Tourism in order to benefit our own industry and those tourism enterprises within the Pyrenees, to ensure that we're working in a collaborative way with Ballarat to attract the market and to win the market share from the tourism economy to support our businesses and their employment of people in the Pyrenees Shire. So as such, an MOU has been created with Ballarat Regional Tourism, and the recommendation, councillors, is that council endorses the execution of the MOU with the Ballarat Regional Tourism, pending the formation of the region's visitor economy partnerships. And secondly, that council receives a further report in due course once the framework for the Central Highlands Visitor Economy Partnership has been drafted.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan.
Happy to move, Mr. Mayor.
Moved Councillor Clark, seconded Councillor Keogh. Any questions, Councillor Clark?
Yeah, just a question first, please, Mr. Nolan. So am I right in this, Mr. Nolan, that effectively the Goldfields region will be divided and that there will be effectively a group around Ballarat? That's how I read the report?
Thank you, Councillor Clark, for that question. The Goldfields region, when it existed previously, actually operated effectively as two sub-regions, and they were somewhat independent. And the new review is recommending that they continue to operate in an independent way, and so there will be likely a much smaller region, which will involve, at this point in time, Ballarat, Pyrenees, Moorabool councils, and potentially with the opportunity to involve Hepburn and parts of Hepburn and parts of Golden Plains on an opt-in basis where it makes sense for that to occur. But those other councils have also got relationships with regions on the other side of them. In Golden Plains case, it's Geelong. In Hepburn's case, it's the Maston Ranges. Yes, much smaller regional body.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I think this is a good arrangement. We've had a very good working relationship with Ballarat now for a number of years, and our product benefits their product and vice versa in that sense. So I think it's a very logical arrangement for us to take up until everything's formalised.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other councillors? Councillor Vance?
Yeah, only to back up what Councillor Clark has already said, we've had a great rapport with Ballarat in the region. We work well with Northern Grampians and Ararat also in the past. We talk and we work well together. Beaufort can well be the recipient of a lot of tourists that are travelling through to the Grampians or further afield, but also those that come to Ballarat were only a short trip out when they want to spend a day to visit some of the attractions around Beaufort or Avoca to the winery. So I think we've got the best of both worlds, really, and a wise move to settle in just for 12 months and see what the government comes up with their visitor enterprise.
Thank you, Councillor Vance. I'll move the motion, councillors. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. 13.2.1, use of land for a mail centre, PA 22033 in Beaufort. Mr Gowans.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide council with information to determine planning permit application PA 22033 for the use of 56A Neil Street, Beaufort as a mail sorting centre. This land benefits from a number of carriageway easements, the most relevant being the two easements that traverse the council car park to the north of the lot that provides access to Willoughby Street. To the east of the site is the former Bank of Victoria building, now utilised as a medical centre. To the west of the site is a hairdresser premises. Between the site and the hairdresser premises is a pedestrian link to the car park areas of Willoughby Street. The site is within the heart of the commercial centre of Beaufort and as such is Zone Commercial 1. It is within the Beaufort Heritage Precinct and abuts Neil Street, which is the Western Highway. The existing building provides a prominent two-storey facade that faces Neil Street. It provides two shop fronts with separate entrances and windows to the Neil Street frontage. At the rear of the substantial two-storey building is a conglomerate single-storey extension providing storage and back-of-house facilities to the Neil Street fronting businesses. The remaining area of the lot provides a paved open area. The rear yard is fenced and gated off from the council car park. The proposal is to utilise the ground floor area as a mail centre. It is noted that there is no retail or customer service element attached to the proposal. The application details provided that there will be a maximum of 4 staff on site. The site is proposed to be used for a period of between 5:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Monday to Friday. A planning permit is required under clause 34.01 of the Pyrenees Planning Scheme, which describes the proposed use as a warehouse. The applicant proposes to use the site as a mail centre for 5 years, and the applicant is supportive of the continued community shop front window displays. The application was advertised to the adjoining owners and occupiers. At the time of drafting, there were no formal objections or submissions lodged. It is the officer's view that the application represents an underutilisation of the site in terms of the Neil Street frontage not being used. And this may reduce the building's potential to be a key landmark building in the commercial precinct of Beaufort. The application suggests that Neil Street is not uniformly active as a main street and that therefore a mail sorting facility is better than a vacant building, even while acknowledging that the use will not generate customer activity and the activity generated by the proposal is minimal in terms of the experience of Neil Street. The lack of activity to Neil Street is not going to assist in providing a positive experience of Neil Street or Beaufort into the future if and when a bypass is developed. A short-term occupation, as now proposed by the applicant, could alleviate the tension between an underutilisation of the site in the short term and maintaining the opportunity for the site to be activated in the future. The application points out that car parking requirements for the proposed mail centre are likely to be less than a retail use. If a permit were to be granted, a condition could require car parking and the proposed loading and unloading of mail transport vehicles be shown to be capable of being contained on site and then restricted to that outcome. Without such a condition, the parking and loading requirements of the use could compromise the availability of parking for other users of the other retail and commercial enterprises in the area. The Pyrenees planning scheme requires a permit for the use of the site as a mail centre. It is therefore incumbent on council to consider the fit of such a use in Neil Street. A mail centre needs good access to transport routes. While it is convenient for the application that the centre of Beaufort is well located for access to a transport route, it is not ideal for a town centre to have an industrial activity at its core. Such a use is more ideally located in an industrial area, given its warehouse activity as defined by the planning scheme. A town centre is expected to be the hub for commercial, civic and community functions. A mail distribution centre is an important adjunct to these functions. It is suggested the proposed use will not add any real perception of activity in Neil Street, given that any activity will be largely completed before 9:30 a.m. And then even more, it is more likely for any activity to occur at the rear of the property. Therefore, there is likely to be minimal impact on amenity. However, nor will there be any vibrancy, activation or activity created by the proposed use while it is on the site. While it is acknowledged that such a facility is important to Beaufort and its surrounds, it's also important to coordinate development of Beaufort's Main Street in a way that ensures the ongoing viability of the commercial centre of Beaufort to provide for the wider community. Given the defined timeframe of 5 years for the mail centre now proposed by the applicant, it is suggested that the proposal may be supported as an interim step for Australia Post to manage the mail services for Beaufort and its surrounds, enabling some use of the building without limiting the longer term potential of this building to be a focal point for the commercial heart of Beaufort. Therefore, it's the officer recommendation that council grant a planning permit for a mail centre at 56 Neil Street, subject to conditions as listed in the report.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. We have the recommendation in front of us, councillors. Do I have moved Councillor Ferrari, seconded Councillor Vance? Councillor Ferrari.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. I think that shop has been vacant for some time. I think some use is better than no use, and it's going to be employing 4 people. I'm not sure if they're going to be local or not, but it's better to have some use. And it appears that most of the coming and going will happen at the back. And in those conditions, I note that there's some conditions in that permit that'll make sure that they adhere to the parking and the that you're loading and unloading, so it won't disrupt the other businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferrari. Councillor Vance, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like to reiterate Councillor Ferrari's comments. I mean, I think this is classic why you have councillors, you have to balance things out. This is kind of a mix between a bit of altruism and a bit of pragmatism. Pragmatic says we want the building occupied, so let's do that. Altruism says we really want it for a main street use, and we can't have that yet. But the 5 years kind of gives us a little bit of a chance to certainly get the building used, get it active, and gives us some room to move, because the bypass hopefully isn't much further away than that, and we'll want to be thinking about the main street in a big way. So don't write that bit down about the bypass, so please don't commit me to that.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Thank you, councillors. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 13.2.2, preferred suppliers, plant and labour. Mr. Gowans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report, the purpose of this report is to provide information to council on the tenders received for plant and labour services and consideration of their inclusion in the preferred supplier panel. Plant and labour includes items such as trucks, graders, utes, rollers, excavators and tractors. The tender for preferred suppliers of plant and labour was closed in March this year. 18 companies provided a submission for the preferred supplier panel. All successful preferred supplier contractors will be required to participate in regular reviews of performance and comply with Council's contractor management system that will maintain certificates, registration and licences for the preferred suppliers. A review of the submissions provided by the tenderers showed all 18 are compliant with the tender requirements. And it's worth noting that of the 18, at least 50% are based in the Shire. The tender received a wide range of respondents, which offers Council a variety of services that can be utilised within Council's works and maintenance services. The tender is included in the attached list, are recommended for appointment as a preferred supplier for plant and labour services. Therefore, it's the officer recommendation that Council receives the preferred supplier report for contract C 2022-002, preferred suppliers for plant and labour services shown in the table, and that Council resolves to appoint the tenderer as detailed in the table as preferred supplier for plant and labour services under that contract.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. Councillors, do I have a move? Moved Councillor Clark, seconded Councillor Vance. Nothing? Councillor Vance.
Yeah, it's only to note the fact that there's 50% of those people on the list are locals. That's very good to see that.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor.
I'm not sure it gives them any preferred options when it comes to selecting in the contract, but at least it's nice to know that they're in there with an opportunity.
No further comments, councillors. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. 13.2.3, preferred supplier trades and miscellaneous services. Mr. Gowans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide information to Council on tenders received for trades and miscellaneous services and consideration of their inclusion in the preferred supplier panel. This report is very similar to the most recent report just presented, and the trades and miscellaneous services include but are not limited to things like air conditioning services, arborist services, auto mechanics, builders, concreters, glaziers, plumbers, traffic management services, to name a few. The tender for preferred supplier of plant and labour closed in March this year. 16 companies have provided submission for the preferred supplier panel. A review of the submissions provided by the tenderers showed all 16 are compliant with the tender requirements. Therefore, it's the officer recommendation that Council receives the preferred supplier report for contract C 2022-003, preferred suppliers for trades and miscellaneous services shown in the table, and that Council resolves to appoint the tenderer as detailed in the table to the preferred supplier for trades and miscellaneous services under contract C, under that contract number.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. A motion, move councillors. Moved Councillor Vance, seconded Councillor Clark. Councillor Vance.
Only just a quick one. I was just wondering, the snake catcher, is he local too?
So interestingly, we had a range of items listed there. However, not all items were responded to. And we've been working with the contract team on how often we might actually go out with these contractor lists. And there is a discussion around whether we actually go out annually, even though it's for a 3-year contract with an extension, but that we actually seek more contractors on an annual basis to fill any holes that might be missed by some of those services listed.
Any other questions? All those in favour? Carried. 13.2.4, Local Government Statewide Waste Forum. Mr. Gowans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for council to consider appointing a representative on recycling and waste matters for the purposes of ongoing collaboration between councils in the Grampians Central West region. Council have received a letter from Councillor Tom Sullivan, Mayor of the Pyrenees Shire and former Chair of the Grampians Central West Waste and Resource Recovery Forum, requesting that Council consider appointing a representative to participate in the Local Government Statewide Waste Forum. On commencement of Recycling Victoria on the 1st of July this year, the Waste and Resource Recovery Groups were dissolved and their relevant functions were transferred to Recycling Victoria. The Recycling Victoria Authority commenced in July, and the state government has yet to provide any concrete details as to an ongoing mechanism that would serve a similar function after the dissolving of the committee. Councillor Sullivan would like to formalise the forum so that beyond the end of June last year, that there continues to be a structure for ongoing collaboration for councils on a regional and statewide level. In order to facilitate this, Councillor Sullivan is proposing that each council appoint a representative to participate. And the Grampians Central West Waste Forum has been a beneficial body for the consistent dissemination of information relating to waste and recycling. And the officer recommendation is that council notes the state government has introduced legislation that dissolves the regional waste management groups effective from 1st of July 2022. The council recognises the benefits of regional collaboration between local governments, including for delivering effective services, achieving efficiencies of scale, sharing expertise, advocating for better policy and legislation, education and procurement. The council notes that the waste and resource recovery groups have provided an effective mechanism for regional collaboration between councils, and that council appoints a councillor representative on recycling and waste matters for the purposes of meeting with other councils in the Grampian Central West region to consider recycling and waste matters and provide advice to councils in the region. Appointing a chair of the regional advisory group who would represent the region in a statewide advisory group, including electing a statewide chair. Developing a proposal for governance of regional coordination between councils for consideration by council at a future date. Calling on the state government to support regional collaboration by providing the secretariat function via Recycling Victoria. And the council officers write to Councillor Tom Sullivan advising of council's resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. At a briefing earlier today, the nominated councillor was decided as Councillor Damien Ferrari and Councillor Tanya Keogh as his proxy if he is unavailable to attend. Councillors, do I have someone to move Councillor Clark? Councillor Ferrari seconded. Mr. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Gowans. I did originally sit on the Waste and Resource Recovery Group, which is now disbanded. So I think it's important that we do continue to have a voice. As you know, waste is one of our big ticket items and it's constantly something we have to get our head around. So I think it's important we have someone sit there and we have a voice and we're involved in the decision making across the Grampians region.
Thank you, Councillor Ferrari. Anyone else? No, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. 13.2.5, Jar Jar Barong Cultural Art Installation. Mr. Gowans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report seeks direction from council regarding the incorporation of Indigenous art in association with community and infrastructure works. The Jar Jar Barong organisation has registered Aboriginal party status and has a recognition and settlement agreement with the Victorian government. This agreement includes a land use activity agreement, which requires council to engage with Jar Jar Barong regarding works on certain lands, including road reserves and Crown land. Through this process, in relation to the replacement of culverts in Lexington, Judge Arong representatives asked council if there was an opportunity for artists to decorate the culvert wing walls. Because these wing walls were not readily visible to the public, Judge Arong were advised that the location, while available, was not ideally suited for the purposes of promoting Indigenous art. An alternative was put forward by council officers for supporting an Indigenous public artwork at Amphitheatre in conjunction with the construction of a car park next to the CFA and in front of the post office. This location has high visibility, being on the Pyrenees Highway and centrally located in the township. It is proposed to provide an amount of $5,000 through the project grant funds to contribute in part or in whole for this work to be commissioned and installed. Given that emerging and established artists have the potential to create artworks that will appreciate in value over time, but are unable to benefit from this change in value, it is proposed that this commission ownership of the artwork would remain with the artist. There are some suggested terms of the commission in the report, and council is asked to consider the proposal to install Indigenous public art at Amphitheatre and contribute to their support by the ongoing process of Indigenous reconciliation. The officer recommendation is that council endorses the installation of a piece of Indigenous art at Amphitheatre.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. Councillors, we have a motion before us. Councillor Clark, seconded. Councillor Keogh. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just simply to say that this is a very good project to council. We've got budget within that program to do something there in this sense of things. So I think it's a good opportunity, and I think the conditions are something that are very important to deal with up front. And I think the fact that it actually belongs to the artist, I think is a really good thing in that context for this situation, because if it actually does have some extra value, then that's the person that deserves to get that value, not the council in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other councillors? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Carried. 13.2.6, bituminous resealing contract. Mr. Gowans, we'll give you a rest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope this will be the last of you hearing from me this evening. The purpose of this report is for council to consider exercising the option to extend the existing contract C 2017-002, the bituminous resealing program, for a further year in line with the existing contract agreement. In April 2017, council entered into a contract with Victorian Surfacing Alliance to provide bituminous resealing works throughout the municipality. The initial contract period was for 3 years and 2 further options to extend. Council has previously exercised its option to extend the contract by 2 years. The cost to council in 2021, based on the proposed bituminous sealing program, will be $700,000, and that's actually for this current financial year. And bituminous sealing is a vital component of council's ability to maintain and renew the Pyrenees Shire road network. Therefore, it's the officer recommendation that council extends contract C 2017-002 with Victorian Surfacing Alliance for 1 further year.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. Councillors. Moved Councillor Vance, seconded Councillor Keogh. Councillor Vance.
No, it's purely a contract that we're following through on as part of our process. Nothing required.
Thank you, Councillor Vance. Anyone else? No. All those in favour? Carried. 13.3, community engagement policy and strategy. Mr. Walmsley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council's endorsement of the revised community engagement and communications policy and the new community engagement and communications strategy. Section 55 of the Act requires council to adopt a community engagement policy by the 1st of March 2021. A policy was developed in late 2020. I went on public exhibition in December 2020 and January 2021, and subsequently was adopted by council in February 2021. These documents have now been reviewed in early 2022 and was renamed the Community Engagement and Communications Policy to bring together aligned functions. At the same time, a new community engagement and communications strategy was developed to clearly articulate the Council's commitment to community engagement and how it would be implemented over the next few years. At its meeting on the 18th of January 2022, the Council resolved to allow the documents to be exhibited for public feedback when drafting was complete. The draft documents were published for consultation in May 2022 and no external submissions were received. The policy and strategy will be supported by detailed internal guidelines for officers conducting engagement and an annual community engagement and communications plan currently under development. The officer's recommendation is that Council resolves to adopt the Community of Engagement and Communications Policy 2022, and secondly, the Community Engagement and Communications Strategy 2022 to 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Walmsley. Councillors, I have a recommendation. Do I have a minute? Councillor Clark? Councillor Keogh? No. Councillor Keogh? This community engagement policy and strategy is probably something that we are going to get better at and need to get better at so that our community can see what we're doing, what we're intending to do, and help us along that journey by having input to our strategies. Without the input of the community, it's 5 people sitting around a table making decisions for you. We need the community to give us their input as well. Councillors, I'll move the motion. Those in favour? Carried. 13.3.2, Insurance Renewal 2022-23. Mr. Walmsley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to endorse the insurance program renewal placed for the 22-23 financial year. The annual insurance program has been successfully procured for another year, commencing the 1st of July 2022. Increases were lower than expected with the current hard market in place, with an increase of 4.91% for the total program. Due to timing constraints and the mandatory nature of needing an insurance program in place, the insurance program has been accepted on behalf of Council, and Council is now requested to provide endorsement of the decision made to procure insurance at a total cost of $455,760.96 for the current financial year. The officer's recommendation is that Council endorses payment of the $455,760.96 for the procurement of the 2022-23 insurance program.
Thank you, Mr. Walmsley. Councillors, we have Councillor Vance moved, Councillor Keogh seconded. Councillor Vance.
Just worth noting, Mr. Mayor, that even though the increase is reasonably small, some 4.91%, our masters in Spring Street restrict us to a 1.75% increase in rates. So here we go again, expecting to do more with less. And I'm sure that the average Joe out there would shudder at the thought of having to fork out almost $500,000 just to cover insurance. And I hope, beyond hope, that if we do have any serious claims against us, that they have a little bit more success than the average Joe has when something goes wrong with flooding or, you get put through the griller when you go and submit a claim on your policy. I don't have a lot of faith in insurance companies, I've got to agree.
Thank you, councillor Vance. Yeah, I thought 4.91%. If anybody's tried to renew their household insurance or their car insurance lately, 4.91% wouldn't be a bad return. Councillors, all those in favour? Carried. 13.3.3, the 2022 Community Satisfaction Survey. Mr. Walmsley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide to the council and the community with a follow-up report regarding planned actions to address matters raised in the 2022 Local Government Pyrenees Shire Council Community Satisfaction Survey. Importantly, the Director Corporate and Community Services has provided quite a lot of analysis in relation to the Community Satisfaction Survey. And I'm not going to go through the detail of it, but I think it's important to note, councillors, that our community has consistently expressed their need to be engaged using a variety of methods. The Community Satisfaction Survey, facilitated by the state government and conducted by JWS Research, uses just one medium, and that's the telephone, to gather the information from residents. Council may wish to consider alternative methods of surveying residents in future to supplement the annual Community Satisfaction Survey, including using Council's engagement hub, where targeted and meaningful feedback on specific issues and services can be obtained. The report goes on to suggest a number of alternative ways to get feedback from the community. And the officer's recommendation is that council receives the information contained in this report and endorses the proposed actions to be taken to improve community perception of council performance, and seeks a report to be provided in early 2023 on progress against the actions.
Thank you, Mr. Walmsley. Councillor. Moved, Councillor Ferrari. Seconded, Councillor Keogh. Councillor Ferrari.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have given this quite a bit of attention, and in our briefings we do discuss it at length because it's so important, and it's basically the feedback that we've got. And to say that we've got a bit of work to do, we acknowledge that, and that's part of this work that's getting done there. So we have to really examine the responses to really find out what they really mean. I know it might say roads, but it's some of the responses can be quite broad. So I think if we're going to make the most impact and about making improvements, we need to get a better understanding about what some of that really means. And the one that's interesting is the 18 to 34 age group provided responses basically with the least confidence. So we need to understand why that's happening, why those young people are making those comments about the council, and the only way we can do that is go out and speak to them, because how else can we do it? So, and I just encourage members of the community to speak with the council. If you've got issues, speak with us, speak your mind, say what you need to do, respectfully, of course, because if we don't know about some of the stuff, we can't fix it. And if we hear it, from enough people, then we have to accept that we have to make the changes that they ask us to make. So please don't be afraid to speak to the council or to some of the council officers, because this is who we work for. We work for you, so it's important that we're working in the right way and that we've got your confidence that we need to do what we need to do. So I look forward to some of that work that's getting done and some of the ways that we can perhaps improve our engagement and communication to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferrari. Councillor Keogh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Ferrari said. I think it's such an important tool that we have, but also to reiterate that it's wonderful to look at different methods, so we're able to reach those groups such as the 18 to 35-year-olds, but all the groups in many different ways, so that we can really hear your responses and your needs, and so we can respond appropriately. But thank you. Just to definitely back up what Councillor Ferrari said, thank you. Thank you to all those people who did take the time to complete the survey too, because it can sometimes be at difficult times, but we appreciate that support from the community. So thank you.
Thank you, councillors. It's something that we need to move with the times. The telephone was probably a good instrument for this purpose 30 odd years ago. Nowadays, there are a lot more other options available to us, and we need to use them all to get the right information back into council. All those in favour? Carried. 13.3.4, borrowings 2022-23. Mr. Warmwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council approval or to seek approval from council to borrow $650,000 that was included in the 2022-23 budget. In preparation for the 2022-23 budget, an amount of $650,000 was included to offset capital expenditure to ensure council continued to have sufficient liquidity to operate the business going forward. The proposal is to seek quotes from 6 banking institutions. And the officer's recommendation is that council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to seek expressions of interest for loan funds totalling $650,000. That council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to accept the terms and conditions of the loan totalling $650,000, sign and seal the documentation on behalf of council.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Councillor, we have a motion. Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Clark, seconded Councillor Vance. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think this is an interesting decision for this group of councillors, because I think most of us as a group of councillors were here when we got ourselves debt-free several years ago. But once again, we're doing this for a very, very good reason in the context of what we've used this money for. And this money has actually purchased a block of land in Beaufort that council hopes to develop in the near future, for further residential use. And I say that in the context today that all of the councillors, of course, were at Corrier Park today to unveil the Michael O'Connor Memorial Park, which I'm sure the Mayor will speak about a little later. But it just reminds us that 100 blocks up there, there's probably 75, nearly 80 houses on them now, not all constructed, but a number under construction. And that point, I think it's been a terrific success for Beaufort, and council would again like to do something similar in the future with this money. But the money effectively, it reflects the fact that council's in a different position to what it was 6 or 8 years ago. Finances, we're not strapped for money, but cash flow is tight. Hence, borrowing the money for this long-term asset that may take us 4 or 5 years to actually recoup these funds back into council's account is a really logical way to manage the issue in the sense of things. But be assured that we're investing this money in the community. That's the purpose of it, taking out the loan.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Vance.
Yes, just once again, seem to be reiterating the words of Councillor Clark, but I am one that was very reluctant to go back into debt again when we were debt free. But when you go and have a look at Corrier Park and what it's done for Beaufort and Beaufort's future, I think it's a very wise move that the 5 councillors around this table have made. And I'm hoping that 5 years is out there a little bit, David, but hopefully we'll see another housing estate on the other side of the old highway that brings in perhaps another 100 homes into Beaufort. And I had the privilege of having a week off after, and we went to New South Wales, and I came back via the Hume Highway and I bypassed took the bypass at Holbrook, and I can assure you that I was so disappointed when I drove through the main street of Holbrook and what it used to be like when I drove through there back in the 60s in the army. Holbrook is a dead town now. Gone. Beaufort won't be gone if and when the bypass comes through. We've got a sustainable community that can keep Beaufort going, and any visitors that choose to drop off will have a good reason. And we all know that with Correa Park, people were able to purchase blocks of land a lot cheaper and much bigger than they could in our neighbouring city in Ballarat. So I think the whole deal is very attractive. It didn't take a lot of swinging to convince me to borrow this money.
Thank you, Councillor Vance. Thank you for the prod, Councillor Clark. Yes, we were up at Correa Park today, and I happen to think Correa Park is one of the best things that's happened to the Beaufort Township since I've been on council, and it proves what council can do when they put their mind to it and create an environment to bring people into the town. We were up there today to commemorate the block of land set aside for a memorial to Councillor O'Connor, and Judy O'Connor and her family came along. Also, some residents were there for the presentation, and it was a wonderful day. The sun was shining. It was quite pleasant up there, a little bit of a breeze, but other than that, it was a lovely day. And we were able to commemorate the work and effort put in by Councillor O'Connor in the area of Beaufort. And it's a testament to the people of Beaufort who requested some sort of memorial for him. It's there, it's available for you to use. Please make use of it, as I'm sure the residents of Correa Park will do over the next years and years and years. Councillors, we have a motion before us. All those in favour? Carried.
Yeah. Just for my clarification, it's treated as urgent business,
Right.
right? And you require a motion for council to agree to consider urgent business, the item as urgent business. So it can only be considered as urgent by a resolution of council, and only if it relates to matters so it relates to that.
Yep.
But it requires a resolution of council to consider the urgent business item.
Councillors, we have an urgent business item brought up and requires a motion to hear the business. Can I have a mover? Mover, Councillor Ferrari, seconded Councillor Vance. All those in favour? Carried. So item 13.3.5, instrument of appointment and authorisation. Mr. Walmsley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for council to review and adopt an updated instrument of appointment and authorisation in respect to the building inspector role within council. The incumbent in the role of building inspector has recently changed, with Ben Spiteri being appointed to the role. For the officer to fulfil the requirements of the role, an instrument of appointment and authorisation is required to delegate this authority from council. It's impractical to wait until the normal review to be undertaken in July and August 2022, as this will delay the officer being able to undertake the full role specification. And therefore, the officer's recommendation is that council, in the exercise of powers conferred under the Local Government Act 2020 and other legislation referred to in the attached instrument of appointment and authorisation, resolves that one, they be delegated to the officer appointed in the role of building inspector the powers, duties and functions as set out in the instrument of appointment and authorisation, subject to the conditions and limits specified in the instrument.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Moved Councillor Ferrari, seconded Councillor Carey. Any discussion, councillors? I'll move the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We move into reports and general business, starting with Councillor Vance.
My mic off. Thank you. First of all, on the 23rd of June, well, I had a Zoom meeting with Rural Councils Victoria. I've been desperately trying to get the minutes back up on my pad and have been unsuccessful. So I will be shooting from the hip. But the main discussion was about strategies that we were going to put together for the upcoming state election, and also organising a forum for next month on the 22nd of July at Dalesford. So that's one for the notebook for people who wish to come along. On the very next day, I attended State Council for the MAV, and as we all know, David is the chair of the MAV, and I've got to personally congratulate him on the manner in which he conducted the whole day. Pretty daunting to front up to about 120 motions, majority of which are directed from city councils that are very vigorous about their motions, and the manner in which you controlled the crowd was brilliant, David. Well done. 16th of July, I had a Timber Towns meeting, once again via Zoom. Just, I'm sure, Douglas, that we've already forwarded off the information required around the tyres report. And I note in my notes here that some of the information has been slow coming in, but it's mostly from the industry, not necessarily from local government. So, but we're desperate to try and get the tyres report out prior to the state election to try and get some more support for our timber roads. I believe we've got funding for a bridge at Raglan, is that correct, through this very program? So that's great. It's interesting to note that 40% of Australia's timber comes from the Green Triangle. That's Australia's timber, not Victoria's, that's Australia's. So it gives you a bit of an idea. There's a fair bit coming offshore, which is very disappointing. Being part of the Timber Towns group, we're fairly disappointed with the attitude of the state government with regards timber. As I said, I was away last week and I drove through East Gippsland into southern New South Wales where the bushfires went through, and it's devastating to see the amount of timber that's just been left wasted on the ground and burnt out. Heartbreaking. I drove back up over the Snowy Mountain Highway. Unfortunately, as soon as I got to the top of the divide, I come out of clear sailing into blanket cloud. And I got back to Holbrook before I could see where I was going. So I had about 3 hours of very interesting driving. And the only other one I wanted to note out of the tyres report, there is some new plantings in the Colac-Otway Shire that indicated that they're in the process of planting out between 20 and 30,000 hectares of new timber for the future, but it takes 30 to 40 years to grow. So as we know, the price of housing is climbing all the time. The price of steel's gone up incredibly. We see building companies going to the wall, the big building companies going to the wall purely because they've quoted jobs and they've signed contracts and their overheads have escalated by 30 to 40% in some cases. So the timber industry is still very, very important to Australia's economy and our future. I once heard an old forester at a conference that I was at talking about a greenie and the wilderness. They talk about the wilderness, and he said, you know the definition of the wilderness? That's that space between a greenie's ears. That's my lot. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Vance. Councillor Keogh.
Sorry, while I get my mic on. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. In the Mount Emu ward, our biggest, which is happening across the ward in various situations, are our works on roads and bridges, and particularly Bridge 32. Works has meant that there's been a significant detour on that Carn and Streatham Road. So we do ask that people take that extra time into consideration because it can be frustrating, but please, on their commute, take that time. And it's also a reminder, I think, to be very safe on all our roads, particularly in these wintry conditions, and to drive to the conditions at all times. The only other one I really had, just as a reminder, and speaking to a few people in regards to our bin collections, you may have seen on our Facebook page or on our website, council actually has purchased some great little bin latches, and what they do, they're a little device that connects to the handle of your bin lid, and it hooks just under the edge of the bin, so it holds it tight from animals or from being if it falls over in the wind, but when the truck actually collects the bin, it clicks open, so it's easy just to sort of click back on. They're just a little rubber device. So you can purchase them. I think they're still $10.85. I looked it up just before tonight. But you can pick one up from here at the council offices or at the Beaufort Community Resource Centre or at the Avoca Information Community Centre. So those people that have really thought they're a great little device. So thank Doug for researching that. But yeah, so look into that just to make that a bit easier and to improve, as Councillor Ferrari is our representative now on the Waste and Recycling committee, but it's the big focus too on really being able to improve our recycling services, and that which is close to my heart and close to many people's hearts, so that we can get a lot more of waste away from landfills. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, councillor Keogh. Do you get a set of steak knives with those bin lids? You do. Oh, lovely. Councillor Ferrari.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just the usual councillor Cupper and chat. We went over to Barclay and as usual over that little place over there, but we get a good turn up. I think there's about half a dozen or 8 people there. So it's really good. Some of those little towns, they're really passionate about what they're doing with their cuppers, and they make the effort to turn up, and usually they want to hand out for something too, but never mind, they turn up, make the effort, and we try and do that. It's good to get out to those little towns and see what is out and about there. So had a couple of meetings with some constituents and some phone calls about a few little things, and thanks to some of the outdoor staff and the officers involved when you just bring it through and get something done pretty much straight up, because there is a backlog of stuff we have with all the cars requests, but sometimes we're able to sneak a few things through, and we did get that couple of little things done, which is really pleasing. So also went to the Rotary Changeover dinner, and that was fantastic, along with the other councillors and the mayor, and that was a really good evening. And I'd like to thank Graham Wakefield for his previous presidency, and congratulations and welcome Merrin Peace as the new president. They do a fantastic job, the Rotary, throughout the year, and a lot that we hear about, but the lot that we don't actually hear about. They just do so much, and they're very community minded. And I do note they've lost Anne Beer now, and Anne's a fantastic driver of getting stuff done in the community. So not only will she be missed in the Rotary space, she'll be missed in the community space. And I wish Anne all the best for her endeavours. I think she's gone to Queensland or something like that. So that's about it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Ferrari. Councillor Ty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, thank you to the council staff who've been out around the Glenbrae Warburg area and across to Waterloo with their grading works. That's really good, and a bit of repair work as well at the same time. Like Councillor Ferrari, I've been to Landsborough and Barclay with the other councillors for the briefings, and it's actually really good to go to a community and they have an ask. You can actually help them out pretty quickly, as we did with the Barclay community. They just need a few more $1,000 to get their basketball ring up, and we've been able to support them with that, and that's a really good outcome for them in that sense of things. In terms of local issues, I had constituent issues in Warburg, in Lexington and in Waterloo in the last few weeks. I've been out to visit people and just look at matters and again use the car system to put those things back in the system for the staff to deal with. With my MAV duties, there's been a number of issues that, of course, also affect Pyrenees as a council. I've been doing stuff on rural planning, school crossing supervisors, social and affordable housing, which again relates quite specifically to the money we've borrowed for this financial year and that land purchase and what we can do with that. And also starting to get ready for the pending state election. So that's all from me. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. And from me, had a Central Highlands Council meeting where we get together and discuss with councils in our area opportunities for us to work as a group to create a better community where we live and to apply pressure to governments for funding and so forth. It was a good meeting. Went to the opening of the Pyrenees Art Exhibition here next door, and the volunteers that put that together do an absolutely wonderful job and deserve all the credit they can have. I certainly haven't got any artistic designs of my own, but the various pieces of art that were up on display, some of them just blew me away. They were absolutely beautiful. And Mr. Gowans and I went to Mooramong down near Skipton recently. The state government has promised $2 million for restoration work and implementation of some accommodation work on the property for people to be able to go there and have a look at it. It is a magnificent property down there that has been there for many, many, many years. And the story of the two husband and wife that owned it and how they transformed it into what it is today is very, very worthwhile. So if you get the opportunity to go down and have a look at Mooramong, please take that opportunity. And Mr. Gowans, if you would pass on my thanks to the crew, the work done in Cambridge Street with regard to bringing that back into semblance has really, really been appreciated by a number of people within Avoca. Thank you very much. Right. I need a closure of the meeting to the members of the public pursuant to provisions section 4.1.1c of Council's governance rules and section 66 of the Local Government Act 2020. The meeting will be closed to the public in order to consider confidential matters. The recommendation as per that the meeting be closed to discuss the future direction of home-based aged care provision in the Pyrenees Shire. Do I have someone?
So moved.
Councillor Van, seconded Councillor Keogh. All those in favour? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance this evening. Those people watching on the streaming, thank you very much for watching. We will be closing down the streaming now and it will be brought back up after we've considered the confidential matters. Thank you very much.
Good night, man.